You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Dr. Fong, how are you?
Fine, Dr. Francu. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for coming over.
No, thank you for the invitation. Very kind of you.
Dr. Fong, what's your legacy?
What's my legacy? Right now, my legacy is transition from parent to grandparent. So,
Oh, that's a great one.
well, it is. It's one of those things that you think about. We spend a great deal of our time, for those of us who are parents, and then when your children have children, and my wife said, and she's often said this, we will never know the job we did in raising our children until we see them raise children. And part of the legacy is not so much that my son has to do things my way, but now as a grandparent, it's yes, obviously I want to spoil my grandchildren, but at the same time, how do I help my son grow into that responsibility of being a parent without me parenting the grandchild?
Yeah, that's nice. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you start in this thing?
Yeah.
Um, what
Well, I
happened along the way, and where are you now?
okay. Well, it is a journey, and a lot of times I think about journeys and quest. Journey at times people might think that you're walking for the sake of walking, whereas a quest is a little bit more specific, perhaps a specific destination. And as I think about this, I started out in medicine. I'm a family physician. I worked at Kaiser for a while. Then I was at academics, and I really enjoyed academics. I was at King Drew Medical Center down in Southern California. Then I was on faculty at UC Davis in the family and community medicine residency. Truly enjoyed that. I got my MBA along the way. And the thing about the MBA is really the MBA experience. It's really not the three letters behind your name, but the fact that you get to meet different people, different disciplines, and really different ways of thinking. And with the MBA experience, I really had a much greater appreciation for engineers, architects, people who designed. I think in medicine, it's sort of this very, I don't want necessarily to say rigid, but it's a very well-defined path. You, as an undergrad, you declare yourself perhaps pre-med, you take the MCAT, you get to med school, residency, fellowship, whatnot. But that was one of the things that I was thinking about my legacy is that I did enjoy the time I had with the medical students and with the residents. But after residency, many of them didn't quite know what they wanted to do. And in fact, there was always one outlier come January graduation, a senior class, always one outlier where the individual had not started interviewing, really didn't know what they wanted to do. And it really stunned me because I thought, according to your personal statement, this was a lifelong dream. You couldn't wait until you could be a physician. You're 6 months away from realizing your dream, and now you want to hit the pause button, which is fine because circumstances, life happens. But I was thinking, so there was an element of planning, but not an element of designing. How do you want to express yourself, your voice, your vision? And I started working outside of academics, did administration, care coordination. But along the way, something about wanting to get back to mentoring and working with that. And that's why I wanted to start off. And I great deal of respect for people who are entrepreneurs, really the risk takers, people who are not willing to sit on the sidelines, settle for a status quo, and willing to take the direction. And it's not that it's guaranteed success, but for them, they have to know, can I do this? And if the answer is no, then at least they have that answer. So what I did is I started a consulting service in which I talk about mentorship specifically. And I think we have, the vocabulary of coach, advocate, teacher, advisor, but I think we don't really differentiate among them. And to me, mentorship has a very special place among those very important roles and responsibilities.
Very interesting. And I was thinking that, we all been through residency programs to become doctors, and it's not a specialty specific. I think your example was a very good one for each one of us because we all had people in our circles as residents that had the same issues. You end up in the middle of your last year, and you look forward to start practicing on your own and get a new life and maybe get a better salary. And all of a sudden you hit a pause because you are stunned at the prospect of being on your own. And I remember on myself, I finished residency and I got a job in a partnership group in a hospital. And the first thing when I started, I was on call, and I was on call by myself, and I had nobody around me to ask for help or to, advise with or anything like that. And those first 6 months are the hardest thing that can happen to you as a new physician. It's such a steep learning curve that you need to take in under your belt by yourself. And I think it's very important the thing that you do right now and mentor those people at least what they have to expect. Because I think residents don't know what to expect when they get off on their own. And they think it's just a nice little leisurely job that they're going to have in the first year. And all of a sudden they get into, those huge cases or huge calls or big issues that they need to take care of by themselves. And they have no idea how to. It's lacking. Your service is lacking right now. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to look into your consultancy domain, especially if you have this business administration degree and experience under your belt, because the mindset of a new resident needs to kind of switch completely to being a new physician on your own. How do you transform this clinical mentorship qualities that you have into a business?
Well, I think one of those things is that learning curve, the entrepreneurship, and part of it is asking other people. So as much as you think you know something, you really don't, and it's the due diligence. And how do you provide value to people? How do you provide value? And how do you get your message across in a clear, concise, consistent manner? So I think, again, that's the journey or the quest that I'm on, is by saying the due diligence, interviewing people, the discovery phase, and talking to people, trying to get as much feedback as possible, saying, does it resonate with you? Did you have value? The 5 minutes, or not even the 5 minutes, the 2 minutes I asked of you, 120 seconds, did you get more than 120 seconds worth of value? Because if you didn't, then I didn't do my job.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure in your experience with working with people like that, you have probably different examples of successes, but failures too. Give us some kind of examples of those failures, I would say, or things that didn't work out really well.
In terms of my own journey?
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely in terms of that. I'll just take one example. I was actually working with an academic institution, and we had just a very casual conversation, and the individual said, why don't you go ahead and give me a proposal? And in my eagerness to give the proposal, I didn't do, again, due diligence. So who are the stakeholders? What were their interests? So I did put forth a proposal, and it didn't quite meet, but I think now going back in terms of that, and we still have to continue a conversation. So I'm fortunate in terms of that. But it was the fact is that he said proposal without me coming back by saying, what does your group need? So basic fundamental, 101, what does the client customer need? And to really hear that in their own words and not look at their websites, not look at other things and try to triangulate it, but to be able to sit across, if you can, from the table and just ask basic questions. What are your needs? Where are you? Where do you want to go? Where do you see the gap?
Yeah, it has to be a very personalized approach, right? Because everybody is different, everybody has different circumstances, and like you said, different needs.
Mhm.
Um, what do you think it's the mindset of those people or the mindset that they need to have in order to succeed?
In terms of going for it, being the entrepreneur. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, both in medicine and business, if they want
Yeah.
to go that route.
I think for medicine is that, and I'm probably maybe a little old fashioned, probably exposing my boomer roots where I still think of medicine as a calling. And when it's a calling, it has a different perspective in terms of what you're willing to put forth. And it's a calling in which you will do everything you can because it has to be satisfied. And anything that you fall short of it is not good enough. So you put in the extra hours, you forego so many things that other people, your friends, are doing, the parties, the even relationships, unfortunately. But somehow is that for medicine, that calling, that when you have that patient right in front of you and they have concerns, they have fears, can you, in all honesty, be able to look that patient in the eye and say, I did the best I could to prepare for this moment, as opposed to, I did 75% and I think my answer will be good enough, as opposed to, no, it's important to me that I can look you in the eye and say, I did my best. You may not be the best physician. There could be other people more skilled, more intelligent, but you know that you did the best you could. So I think it's from that calling aspect. I think for the business aspect is people, and then that's where I think the link is. I think all of us who went into medicine, I hope we did, were curious. How does the body work? How do, pharmacokinetics, all the classes that we took, how does this work? Why does it work? When does it work? And in terms of decision making. For business is that people look around and they see opportunities. I think it's the infamous, building a better mousetrap or a better light bulb. When people said, why are we doing it this way when I know there's a better way? I know there's a better way, or I have to find a better way because so many people are impacted adversely in the way we're doing it right now. So that curiosity, that drive of looking for something better, and then when you realize you can't wait for other people to develop it for you, you can't wait for the next version of something. You decide that you want to have an impact, you want to contribute, and it'll challenge you in ways that you've never been challenged before.
But there are many people in medicine that they came not for a calling, they came for business,
Mhm.
they came for money.
Mhm.
How do you advise those kind of people? Because it's pretty kind of obvious
Yeah.
at some point.
Well, and I would never begrudge anyone who wants to make a living, and obviously they do have to make a living, pay back, and so forth. But when I was interviewing medical students, it was always interesting because when you read about essays, personal statements, and 99 out of 100 times, I want to be a doctor because I want to help people. And I would ask them, I said, so you want to help people? Yes, I want to help people. I want to bring health to people. And I said, well, if you were a sanitation engineer and could deliver clean water to another part of the world in which cholera's, epidemics of cholera, you would be helping people. You would prevent them from morbidity, mortality. You wouldn't have to go to med school. Why aren't you doing that? And many of them were just stunned because they thought the altruism and all that, and their scope was very limited in terms of that. So to answer your question, for people that want to go into money, if they are, and I would at least respect them if they were honest. I want to do this because it will afford me a certain lifestyle, prestige, and so forth. And then I would just ask questions, not necessarily challenge them, but just try to get a better sense of, the perspective, what their epicenters are, and ask, well, if you were to go into sales or other aspects, you could probably actually make more money and not incur as much debt. And you could definitely scale uh, revenue much better than seeing patients because for most of us, the model, unless you invent something or get a patent on something, your scalability is going to be still seeing that, one patient after another. So I was thinking if truly you wanted money, then I don't think medicine's the most efficient way of achieving that goal.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Also, I want to ask you, in what you're doing right now, what do you think was the biggest change in your mindset when you start doing this? And your mind and the things that you do every day, the routines, the habits, the protocols that you had, how did you change those to fit into what you want to actually do?
I think the mindset is that if for people who, again, that's why I really admire people with the entrepreneurial spirit who are willing to give, because it's really a 24/7, 365. You are HR, you are marketing, you are sales, you are everything.
Yeah.
And I think it was that the mindset is that when you wake up in the morning saying, all right, I have to generate business. That's it. It's not about this or that. It's a fact that at the end of the day, did I generate business? Did I provide value? Yes, making the contacts are all good, but were deals being closed? And when I saw that, it's not so much this draconian, myopic view, but just saying, all right, so what was the process? Because you put in all this effort. And what you put in this effort is it to increase their social circles? No, you're for the sustainability and the viability of business, and to a certain extent, the external validation. People are saying, I am willing to open up my wallet and transfer value and wealth to you because I value what you have. So part of it's that mindset of saying, am I connecting? Am I making the transitions? And am I providing the value that people want to purchase?
Yeah, that's a great point. But also the next question would be from me, if you want to teach people to do that, you need to be yourself a better version. How do you do that for yourself? Like, tell me, in your life, what strategies or, protocols you have every day to get to a better version of yourself.
Part of it is that not necessarily living in the past or the generation I'm in, and I think about Generation X, Generation Z, millennials, and all that. Is I have to keep current with what people are doing, not what I think they should be doing. And that means that I talk to a great deal with parents, and I ask them because they're raising children now, whereas my children are grown. So I don't want to rely on my experiences. I want to know what's going on with the parents, given the current circumstances, economic circumstances, all their concerns and what they want for the children. So I'll ask the parents because I know the parents are very influential in their children's lives. I said, what do you want for your child? What do you think is missing? And where do you think that you would need help? And then asking individuals, the younger generations, I said, where do you, not so much where do you see yourself in 5 years, but what is your vision and what is your voice? And, how are you going to bring, and for the people who have a vision to now ask, well, how are you going to execute that vision? So when you say the better version of myself, it's not coming in and saying, I have this many years of experience and let me tell you how it's done. It's the freshness, the approach. When you come with someone new, it's a new experience, a different experience, it's a unique experience. How can I appreciate that? And how can I see the world through your eyes? Because when you tell me something that is concerning, how can I appreciate that? I take the effort to appreciate that so I don't be dismissive. I don't tell them that's not a big thing. Don't worry about it. You'll get over it. So, many times we think about back to teenage, right? The first time our heart's broken. It's devastating to an individual. We've been there, but as adults, it's easy for us to say, you'll get over it. You got your entire life ahead of you. It's not a big deal. So that's a parallel situation for people who going through, as you talk about, when residents first started independent practice. There are so many other people in the hospital, and they could always call a colleague. Yet that real fear, that real concern that imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I'm going to do harm to a patient, and people will find out that they should never have hired me in the first place. So those things was when I'm talking to the younger individuals. I don't want to necessarily, use the word fear, but tell me what your concerns are, and tell me how you see the world, so that when you say something, I will understand what you're saying, as opposed to me having a overlay of my recollections or my impression of the world, because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the individual, their needs, and how we can get them from A to B.
Very interesting. I see a bunch of numbers on the wall behind you, and I can't stop asking you, because I believe what I believe they are is they're like race
Yeah,
numbers, right?
yeah, that was another lifetime ago when my knees actually function. So those are the marathon bibs, and I keep them because that was the one article, one souvenir that was with me the entire 26.2 miles, with the Gatorade stains and the sweat. So, the finisher medals and all that, I don't even know where those are, because that to me was not what it was all about. That was a sort of ceremonial, ornamental, and here's how you get at the end. I go, no, those are reminders of, as you talk about, the journey, that
Yeah.
bib was with me every step of the way.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of stop on the tracks a little bit about those numbers, because I think it matters for people to understand that in life it's more about the journey, it's not the destination. And I'm sure, many people finish marathons, but each one of them have memories during the marathon, not when they finish and
Yeah,
not when they got the medal,
yeah.
but what happened during the whole journey of them running those 26 miles.
Yeah, and the stories that you get. I love the marathons. I love the starting line when you talk with your fellow marathoners, and everyone's got a story. Everyone's got a story, and everyone's got an opportunity to achieve a personal best. Everyone's got an opportunity to achieve what they set out to do, and I think that's a very positive feeling. So, obviously, I'm not an elite runner, so I don't have to finish in the top three or anything like that. But
Right.
nonetheless, the support that you have in that group, in your community, in your tribe, right at the starting line, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's the sense of belonging.
It is. It's a sense of belonging, and you're going to root that person on. When you see them, perhaps they're slowing down, you're going to say to them, "You can do it. Keep going." Or you're going to have people to say, "Hey, I know you're struggling right now. Just follow me. Don't think. I'll pace you." When people extend and give them themselves, it's a fantastic feeling.
Yeah. That's one thing that I love about any kind of mentorship programs, right? Because they create a community around that specific goal or specific trait or profession or whatever it is that you're mentoring in. And you get together with people that have the same ideals, they have the same purpose as you, and you can, create that kind of community around you. Um, I want to switch gears a little bit
Sure.
and talk about a little bit about the financial aspect of being a doctor. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you coaching so many people so far, you encounter the main reason
Mhm.
that people can't retire or
Mhm.
can stop practicing because they're burned out. The fact that they don't have enough financial resources to do that.
Mhm.
Um, What is your strategy and what is your approach in advising them to build that financial security for them? Is there
Mhm.
any kind of strategy or advice that you give, or, do you have your own um, purpose on doing something special for that?
I don't have necessarily special, but I think it goes back to, again, design. So as you're thinking about your life, and yes, you could do the stepwise incremental, year one, year two, or whatnot. but I wanted to have a more global approach by saying, so what do you want your life to be? So when people will, and I don't necessarily want to wait till your funeral, but as you're thinking about it, what are people saying and what is your legacy? What's your message saying? And are you working towards that? So one of the things I try to put first and foremost is, what is your message? What is your message? And they have to be able to articulate that first before we can get into the details. And once they can give me the message, then we could work in terms of the details of, all right, is your work contributing to that? Or do you have to rearrange your work to that? And again, the finances are important because it may be one of those things where people want to be philanthropic, perhaps. That's how they're going to express themselves. That some people have a very, a wonderful talent for making money, bless them. And they realize it's not about spending the money, but it's about how can I help others. And I also talk about, I said, we are messaging all the time. We don't think about that. And that's why I think people delay thinking about their legacies or really are not cognizant about their legacies till later on in life. But every thought, every word, every deed that is built, that's a brick in our legacy that we're building. And we're messaging all the time. How we greet people in the morning, do we greet people only that are important to us, and the people that have absolutely no financial professional value to us, we ignore. And how we spend our money is one of the biggest indicators of what your message is. So one of the things is that, we talk about finances, money is what's your stewardship? So I really stress stewardship. Stewardship because it's yours, yes, but how are you using it? And the way you're using it, how is it fitting into your message? But you can't do that unless you tell me what your message is. Then we could, work with that. And there are times when I say you may want to have a talk with a financial advisor about this to reach your goals. But what do you want? And I know now that there's that thought process of dying with zero, where people say, I'm not leaving anything to my kids. And
That's a great book out there.
Yeah.
That's called Die with Zero.
Right. And I think it's an interesting
Yeah.
concept that we wait so long and all of a sudden, we maybe an inheritance or whatever, and we sacrifice so much and we really didn't get our message out. And we built, I'm not saying that's not a worthy legacy to provide for people, but that's not the legacy that you wanted to, the message that you want to leave. So I think it's, people being more intentional, saying that here, the now, the resource that I have now, am I making the best use of it? And it may be very well that you allocate those resources now instead of just stockpiling it and leaving it to people where they may or may not make any better choices than you.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And I would totally agree with you on this perspective. People forget how short life is. And when you look back, from an older person perspective, nobody has regrets about anything else other than I didn't do the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
And I think most people need to understand this, that it's better to do things earlier rather than later.
Absolutely. For people to challenge themselves. And I think that's one of those things is that, for us, as you're talking about aging, one of the things I'm thinking about now as a grandparent is, what did I learn today? Not what habit I continue doing, but what did I learn today? And I know when people say, you have to get out of your comfort zone, I think is that, how are you being challenged? How are you being challenged? And are you learning alongside with the younger generation so that you don't try to appear or give the sense that you know everything? I think, to show people, I have my shortcomings. I have things I need to shore up on. I have deficiencies in these knowledge areas or whatnot. I need to be better in decision making, all these things, the ongoing process. And you're right, for people that have, you even speaking up. So many people in meetings, I'm sure you've been through more than your share of meetings, where maybe 3/4 of the people never say a word. They never say a word. And I'm thinking, why did you even come to this meeting?
Yeah, that's true. Dr. Fong, with all the experience you have right now and the wisdom that you gathered by talking to so many other people, when you look back to yourself
Mhm,
when you were young and
mhm,
you started this whole journey, what
mhm.
kind of advice would you give to yourself?
I would give to myself is you're gonna make mistakes or you're gonna make choices that didn't turn out the way you had hoped and it didn't work out. Not that you have a short-term memory about it, but that you move on from it. And beating yourself up or chaining yourself to that regret is not going to be helpful. So one of the things, and I think in our medical profession, the first time we had to go before M&M, right, and be on the spotlight saying, I had a patient had a bad outcome.
I have PTSD on those.
but we sweat when we had to go before M&M. And I just remember the first time when my chief resident, one of my best chief residents, and he was named as a defendant in a lawsuit, and he did nothing wrong, but he just was a shell of himself. And talk about talking someone down from the ledge. So I think in medicine we strive for perfection, and I'm not sure we're willing to accept the fact that we can't achieve it. And how do you move on from it? So I think the paralyzing effect as physicians when something doesn't go right, especially when it's a really bad outcome, it lingers with us. And for the longest while we didn't talk about it, or it was a scarlet letter that you had to wear and so forth. So I think one of those things is that, and to say that for one is don't hang on to regrets, learn from them, don't ignore them, but don't hang on to it, and you don't have to do penance for what because you can't, and it's silly, and just the idea that you can be a martyr or something like that, it's downright silly. Two is that being a physician, I thought it was at the time my end all. That's who I am. That's my identity and so forth. And I realized that's going to be part of your identity. If that's all you are, then maybe you're not using your gifts to its fullest, because we can be a physician plus something else. We don't have to be just physicians. And it could be for people who are mentors, people starting businesses, people being involved in communities, running for office, whatnot. So many times I think for the physicians, and because we come across so many people, and I think, have a pretty good understanding of what people need immediately, what their fears are, and what they look for people in terms of solutions. And that's, as physicians, that's, our big part of who we are is finding solutions. So I think is that, don't let your regrets hang over be around your neck, hanging around your neck like an albatross. Understand that being a physician, and yes, that's a very important part. You work very hard at it, but ask yourself, is there something more that I can be that's going to be not in lieu of, but complement my being a physician and being able to utilize all the skills that I acquired as a physician.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your wisdom, and I think people should look more into your work and maybe look for your advice. How can they get in touch with you?
My website is www.truenorthshepherding.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. I have a podcast that's called The Legacy Drawing Board. So they could get in touch with me there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Fong.
Thank you for
Hope,
your time,
hope
Dr.
more people
Francu.
will reach out to you.
I thank you very much for this platform, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.